Hello there, and welcome. Tonight we are not starting with the stars above, nor with the fossils beneath our feet. Tonight begins in a place far closer and perhaps more unsettling, with an idea so strange that it flips our usual dreams upside down. Because we often imagine that the greatest discovery in human history would be to find life beyond Earth. But what if the opposite were true? What if the best news, the only good news, was that we never find it at all? This thought comes from the philosopher Nick Bostrom, who wrote an article with a title as provocative as it is unsettling. Where are they? Why I hope the search for extraterrestrial life finds nothing. At first glance, it seems absurd. Why would anyone hope that the universe is empty? Why would we prefer silence to company? For centuries, humans have lifted their eyes to the skies with longing, wondering if we are alone. To hope that the answer is, yes, we are, that sounds like despair. And yet, in Bostrom's logic, it might be the only path to hope. But let's not rush ahead. Let's set the stage, as we always do. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the auditorium of the mind. On one side, you see the excitement of discovery, a rover digging into Martian soil and finding a single microbe, a fossil, a whisper of biology beyond Earth. The world would erupt in celebration. Headlines, parades, history books rewritten. On the other side, you see disappointment. Probes return nothing. Instruments scan endlessly and find only dust, rock, silence. No fossils, no cells, no trace. At first, that second story seems like the tragedy, the missed chance, the anticlimax. But tonight, we will hold that assumption to the light and turn it slowly in our hands. Because sometimes, what looks like bad news may be our salvation. The key is something called the Great Filter. The name itself sounds like a riddle or a machine, but it is a concept that tries to explain a mystery as old as the question, where is everybody? If life is common, if evolution is likely, if intelligence is not rare, then why don't we see them? Why don't we hear them? The universe is vast, old, fertile with stars and planets. It should be buzzing with civilizations. And yet, for all our listening, for all our searching, the skies remain quiet. The Great Filter is the suggestion that somewhere, hidden in the chain of steps from chemistry to consciousness, there is a barrier. A step so unlikely that almost nothing passes through. And if such a filter exists, it could explain why we do not see others. We are rare not because the universe is empty, but because most attempts to cross the filter fail. Here is where the paradox sharpens. If the Great Filter is behind us, then we are lucky beyond measure. Life is rare, but we pass the impossible threshold. We are survivors of a lottery so improbable it may never be won again nearby. In that case, our future may be open, bright, and long. But if the Great Filter is ahead of us, then our days are numbered. Because the silence in the cosmos would mean that civilizations often rise, but they almost always fall. Something, war, climate, technology, chance, wipes them away before they spread their light. If that is true, then humanity too is marching toward its own silence. And this is why Bostrom hopes we find nothing on Mars. Because if Mars, a world so close and so similar, also sprouted life, then life itself is not the filter. It is easy. It happens whenever conditions allow, which means the true barrier lies further ahead. And if the true barrier lies ahead, then our future is more precarious than we wish to admit. But if Mars is sterile, if Earth alone carries the spark, then maybe, just maybe, the Great Filter is already behind us. The silence of the cosmos would not be a warning, it would be a reassurance. We survived what almost no one else did. This is not just philosophy, it is also deeply personal. Imagine the emotions tied to this thought experiment. For some, the idea of a lonely universe is unbearable. For others, it is a strange comfort. And tonight, we will step into that tension. The tension between hope and fear, between longing and survival. Because to think about extraterrestrial life is to think about human destiny. To look outward is always also to look inward. Think for a moment about how human culture has treated this question. From the myths of gods descending from the heavens to Renaissance debates about plurality of worlds to 20th century pulp magazines filled with bug-eyed aliens, the imagination has always leaned toward company. Loneliness is the fear. Discovery is the dream. And yet, in the 21st century, we are forced to consider the darker mirror. What if company means extinction? What if survival requires solitude? What if the cosmic silence is not neglect, but mercy? Pause here. Breathe with this thought. The search for life beyond Earth is not just about telescopes, probes, or equations. It is about our place in the story of existence. To find nothing is not failure. It might be the proof that we are rare, precious, improbable, and that our task is not to wait for neighbors, but to become the voice that breaks the silence. Tonight's journey will follow this arc. We will walk with Fermi and his paradox. We will consider the great filter in all its possible faces. We will look at Mars and its soil as a stage for the most important experiment in history. We will trace the fragile history of life on Earth and ask why it took so long to cross certain thresholds. We will imagine alternative explanations, civilizations that hide, technologies that withdraw, or futures that end too soon. And finally, we will reflect on what all of this means for us, for our future, for our choices, for the meaning of being human in a universe that may be both fertile and silent. As you listen, let yourself drift between wonder and unease. The subject is not comfort, it is clarity. And clarity sometimes asks us to stare at the darker possibility, not to surrender to it, but to understand the stakes of our age. For we stand at a crossroads. We may be alone, and that may be good. We may not be alone, and that may be catastrophic. Either way, the question of life beyond Earth is also the question of life's endurance on Earth. So here is the invitation: to journey into this puzzle, to hold its contradictions, and to feel the strange comfort of uncertainty. Because sometimes the deepest wisdom is not in the answer, but in the question itself. And tonight, the question is this: if we are alone, is that tragedy or salvation? And if you wish to keep exploring with us, take a moment to join this community of curiosity. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others who wonder. Because the search for life is not only science, it is a mirror of ourselves. And to wonder together is its own form of survival. Imagine this: it is 1950, lunchtime at Los Alamos. A group of physicists are gathered around a table, their conversation drifting between jokes, theories, and the future of technology. Among them is Enrico Fermi, already famous as one of the great minds of the atomic age. Between bites, he asks a question so disarmingly simple that it has echoed through decades ever since. Where is everybody? The context was light-hearted. They were joking about comic strips, flying saucers, and the possibilities of interstellar travel. But Fermi's question cut through the noise. If the universe is old, vast, and filled with stars like the Sun, many with planets like Earth, then civilization should have had billions of years to arise, expand, and leave traces. Even if only a fraction of planets host life, and only a fraction of those produce intelligence, the numbers still point toward abundance. We should see them. We should hear them. They should be everywhere. And yet, they are not. This is the paradox of Fermi, the contradiction between high probability and zero evidence, between expectation and silence, between the crowded universe of math and the empty universe of experience. And it is not just a clever question over lunch, it is a mirror that forces us to confront the deepest uncertainty about our place in the cosmos. Let us unfold it carefully. First, the scale. Our galaxy alone contains more than 200 billion stars. Many of them are older than the Sun. Many have planets in the so-called habitable zone, where liquid water can exist. In recent decades, exoplanet discoveries have confirmed what was once only speculation. Planets are not rare. They are the rule. In fact, most stars may host them. By sheer statistics, Earth should not be exceptional. The ingredients of life, water, carbon, energy are not exotic. They are cosmic commons. Now imagine this multiplied across the universe, 2 trillion galaxies, each with billions of stars. Even if life is rare, the numbers still suggest that intelligence should not be unique to Earth. Somewhere, someone else should have asked the same questions we are asking now. And if even one civilization managed to master interstellar travel, or simply to send self-replicating probes, then in the billions of years available, they could have spread across the galaxy. Not in centuries, not in millennia. In the deep oceans of cosmic time, even slow travelers would have had enough to leave a mark. So where are they? This is the silence that echoes through astronomy, philosophy, and science fiction alike. It is the SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has been listening to for decades. Radio telescopes tuned to the sky, scanning for whispers of artificial signals, but finding only the static of stars and quasars. Missions to Mars and the outer planets, searching for signs of life, but returning only geology and chemistry. Astronomers mapping exoplanet atmospheres, hoping for biosignatures, but so far finding only gases without context. The silence is not proof of absence, but it is absence of proof. And as the years pass, it grows heavier. Of course, explanations abound. Perhaps the universe is teeming with life, but it is simply too far away for us to detect. Perhaps civilizations rise and fall quickly, their signals brief candles that burn out before we notice. Perhaps they use technologies we cannot even imagine, signals we are not equipped to interpret. Perhaps they are here, but hidden, choosing to observe rather than announce. Perhaps we are looking in the wrong spectrum, the wrong time frame, the wrong way entirely. Each of these explanations soothes the paradox for a moment, but they also raise further questions. Distance alone cannot explain the silence forever. If civilizations expand, some should eventually reach us. Brief lifespans cannot account for the absence of all. Surely some should overlap with ours. Exotic technologies cannot erase the possibility of at least one signal resembling our own. Hiding deliberately is possible. But why would all hide across billions of stars and billions of years? The paradox is resilient. It resists simple answers. This is why it matters. The paradox of Fermi is not just about aliens. It is about probability colliding with reality. It is about the gap between what seems likely and what we actually see. And in that gap lies a danger that our assumptions about life, intelligence, and survival are profoundly wrong. Think about human history for a moment. Every time we assumed we were central, we were proven wrong. The Earth was not the center of the universe. The Sun was not unique. Our galaxy was not the whole cosmos. Over and over, humility was forced upon us. So we might expect the same here, that life too is common, that intelligence too is ordinary. But the silence says otherwise. The silence whispers that perhaps we are rare after all, or worse, that we are not rare, but doomed. Because if the universe should be full of civilizations, and yet it is not, then something must be stopping them. Something must filter them out. And that thought, that there is a filter somewhere in the chain of existence, is where Bostrom and others turn the paradox into a warning. Before we get there, pause again. Feel the weight of this contradiction. A galaxy of billions of stars, and yet not a single undeniable signal. The numbers scream abundance. The evidence insists emptiness. Fermi's lunchtime question has become a cosmic mirror. It does not only ask, "Where are they?" It also asks, "Why are we still here?" Some thinkers respond with optimism. Maybe it is simply too early. Maybe civilizations are just beginning to bloom, and we are one of the first. The future, then, is open, with company waiting somewhere ahead. Others respond with caution. Maybe civilizations always destroy themselves before they spread. In that case, the silence is not a promise, but a prophecy. The paradox holds both possibilities at once. It is a riddle without a punchline. And that is why it matters so much. Not because it has an answer, but because it forces us to ask better questions. What is life? How likely is it to arise? How fragile is intelligence? How long can technology endure? And above all, are we an exception, or are we next? As we move forward, remember Fermi's simple words. Where is everybody? They may sound like curiosity, but they also carry the weight of destiny. Because depending on the answer, our future may be measured in millions of years, or in only a few generations. So let us follow this path. From the silence of the skies, we will turn to the idea of the Great Filter. We will examine what it means to hope that Mars is barren, to fear that microbes may be our doom, and to wonder whether the silence is a gift or a curse. But before all that, let tonight's reflections settle in your thoughts. The universe is vast, old, and fertile. And yet it is quiet. The paradox is not out there, it is here, inside us, pressing for an answer. If this unease echoes inside you, perhaps let it travel further, like a faint signal carried across space, waiting to be received by another curious mind. When we speak of life in the universe, there is a temptation to imagine it as inevitable. Chemistry is common, water is abundant, planets are everywhere. Why would life not appear wherever the stage is set? And yet, the silence we explored in the last block insists that something is missing from this picture. This is where the idea of the Great Filter enters, a concept designed to explain why the universe does not look as crowded as it should. The Great Filter is not a machine nor a law of physics. It is a metaphor, a lens through which to think about probability and destiny. Imagine the path from dust to civilization as a long corridor of doors. Behind the first door, simple molecules assemble into something more complex. Behind another, chemistry learns the trick of replication. Further down, cells evolve into more elaborate forms. Nuclei appear, multicellularity takes root, animals crawl onto land, intelligence arises, technology is born. Each door is a threshold. To reach the end, every civilization must pass through all of them. The Great Filter is the suggestion that one of those doors is almost always locked. If the Great Filter exists, it explains the silence. Civilizations do not spread because almost none reach the point of spreading. Most attempts to walk the corridor fail early. The miracle is not that we are listening to the silence, it is that we are here at all. But how do we identify which door hides the filter? This is where Bostrom sharpens the thought. He proposes 2 criteria that mark a step as a true filter. First criterion, uniqueness. A filter-worthy event must have happened only once, or almost never, in the history of life. If something repeats easily, it is not improbable enough to explain the silence. For example, consider the emergence of oxygenic photosynthesis. If it had appeared dozens of times independently, it would not qualify as a filter. But if it arose only once and changed the destiny of the planet, then it becomes a candidate. The rarity itself is the clue. Second criterion, slowness. Even if conditions are ready, the transition must take a long time, hundreds of millions, even billions of years. This delay suggests that the step is not just rare, but difficult. Consider the leap from simple prokaryotic cells to complex eukaryotes. It took more than 1 billion years after the first life emerged. The ocean was already filled with bacteria. But the innovation of the nucleus, the mitochondrion, the cytoskeleton, it waited and waited, as though rolling dice that almost always came up empty. That slowness is a signature of improbability. These two markers, uniqueness and slowness, are what Bostrom calls the fingerprints of a filter. If a step happened only once and took eons to occur, it may be the bottleneck through which almost no world passes. And if that bottleneck is behind us, we are rare survivors. If it is ahead of us, we are fragile candidates for extinction. Consider the first possibility, the origin of life itself. Biogenesis, the moment when non-living chemistry became living biology, may be the filter. On Earth, as far as we can tell, it happened only once. Every organism alive today descends from the same common ancestor, the same primordial spark. For billions of years since, the experiment has not been repeated. No second genesis, no parallel lineage, no new life form emerging from scratch. Despite oceans of opportunity, life seems to have begun just once and then monopolized the planet. And it happened slowly, hundreds of millions of years after Earth became habitable. Both criteria fit. If this is the filter, then we may already have passed it. Life elsewhere may almost never arise, no matter how many Earth-like planets exist. And if that is true, then our loneliness is tragic but also protective. The silence is explained, and our survival is not doomed by some inevitable future step. But there are other candidates. The rise of eukaryotes is one. Simple prokaryotes appeared early and spread easily. But the leap to cells with nuclei, internal compartments, and symbiotic mitochondria, this took far longer. For more than 1 billion years, Earth was ruled by bacteria and archaea. Only once did the great merger occur that produced the ancestors of all plants, animals, fungi, and us. Uniqueness, check. Slowness, check. If this is the filter, then many planets may swarm with microbes but never climb further. Intelligent civilizations would be exceedingly rare, because the leap from simple to complex cells is nearly impossible. Another candidate is multicellularity leading to intelligence. Life may survive as bacteria almost everywhere, but the path to creatures capable of thought may be vanishingly narrow. The Cambrian explosion of complexity took billions of years of preparation. Intelligence itself has arisen only once on Earth in a way that produces technology. Dinosaurs reigned for hundreds of millions of years without radios or rockets. Even among mammals, only humans crossed into symbolic language and advanced culture. Intelligence, then, may not be destiny. It may be an anomaly. The last possibility is darker, that the great filter lies not in the past, but in the future. Perhaps life arises easily, perhaps intelligence emerges often. But civilizations do not last. They burn themselves out with weapons, collapse under ecological strain, or are undone by the very technologies they invent. If this is the filter, then the silence of the universe is the silence of graves. Civilizations rise like sparks, flare briefly, and die before their light can cross the void. In this view, our future is not secured by having survived the past, it is threatened by what lies ahead. This is the core of Bostrom's unsettling argument. To find life elsewhere, to see microbes in Martian soil or fossils in alien rock, would tell us that the early steps are not the filter. They are easy. Which means the true barrier must still wait for us, somewhere in our path. It would be like glimpsing our own executioner's shadow in the distance. To find nothing, paradoxically, is safer. Sterile. Mars means we already passed the great test. Fertile Mars means the test is still to come. Pause and hold this thought gently. The great filter is not just an intellectual puzzle. It is a mirror for our anxieties and hopes. It asks us to imagine not only what is out there, but what is ahead of us. Are we survivors, or are we doomed? Are we rare, or are we temporary? The answer changes how we see our place in the universe, and how we imagine the centuries to come. Think of it like this. The universe is a great sieve. Dust, planets, molecules, stars. They all fall through easily. But somewhere in the mesh, life gets caught. Most never pass through. Only a few threads slip by, and perhaps only once, here on Earth. If we are through already, then the sieve is behind us. If not, we are tumbling toward it still. This is why Bostrom's article carries such weight. It reframes discovery as danger. It reminds us that curiosity is not neutral. It can reveal truths we may not want to face. But it also challenges us to humility. To live as though survival is not guaranteed, to take our fragility seriously, to recognize that our story is not inevitable. And so, as we continue this journey, we carry the paradox in our hands. The silence of the skies, the possibility of filters, the riddle of survival. In the next block, we will turn to Mars as the immediate stage for this drama. What we find, or fail to find, there may shape our understanding of destiny itself. For in those red sands lies not only geology, but perhaps the sharpest clue to whether humanity's future is long or short. If this thought lingers with you, allow it to move on, like dust lifted by solar winds, searching for another traveler who wonders the same. Picture the red planet for a moment. A world close enough that we can see it as a disk in the night sky, yet far enough that no human foot has touched it. For centuries, it has been a mirror of our imagination. To some, it was a home of canals and civilizations. To others, a barren desert. To us today, it is a laboratory. The stage upon which one of the most important questions of our age may be answered: are we alone? Nick Bostrom, in his article, proposes that Mars holds not only geological secrets, but existential ones. Because what we find, or fail to find, there may decide whether humanity's future is bright or dark. He frames it in 3 possible outcomes, each carrying a different weight for our destiny. The first possibility is that Mars is sterile. That despite ancient rivers, dry lake beds, and hints of subsurface ice, no life ever arose there. We dig, we drill, we probe, and we find only chemistry. No fossils, no microbes, no trace of biology. At first glance, this seems anticlimactic. The world would be disappointed. Headlines would speak of failure. But in Bostrom's logic, this is the most hopeful news possible. Why? Because if Mars, so similar to Earth in its early days, did not sprout life, then biogenesis must be rare. Life must be a near impossible lottery, one only once in our cosmic neighborhood. That would mean the great filter lies behind us. The step from chemistry to biology, the first door in the corridor, was the locked one. We passed through it, and almost no one else ever will. The silence of the stars would then make sense. The universe is not filled with civilizations because the first step is nearly impossible. We are rare survivors, not late victims. And though loneliness is hard to accept, it comes with comfort. Our future may be long, because the greatest barrier is already behind us. Think about the weight of this outcome. It would mean that Earth is not just special, it is miraculous. That every tree, every ocean, every human face is part of a singular miracle in billions of light years. It would mean that our responsibility is enormous because we may be the only consciousness for trillions of miles. A lonely universe is a sobering idea, but it may also be a safe one. The second possibility is that Mars once hosted, or still hosts, simple life. Microbes, bacteria-like organisms, or their fossils, perhaps buried deep in the soil, shielded from radiation, perhaps frozen in subsurface ice. Perhaps only as traces of molecules, isotopic signatures, or chemical fingerprints. At first, this seems like the dream discovery. Proof that life is not unique to Earth. A second Genesis. The newspapers would rejoice, the public would celebrate. But in Bostrom's framework, this is actually bad news, because it would mean that the first step, the origin of life, is easy. It happens wherever conditions allow. If it happened twice in one solar system, then it likely happens everywhere. Life is not improbable. It is common. And if life is common, then the great filter must lie further down the path. Somewhere between microbe and civilization, there is a door almost no one passes. And if that is true, then our survival is not guaranteed. Because if billions of worlds sprout microbes, but none sprout lasting civilizations, then it means the filter lies ahead. Perhaps it is the leap to intelligence. Perhaps it is the survival of technology. Perhaps it is self-destruction. But whatever it is, it has already claimed countless others. And we may be next. This is why finding microbes on Mars, paradoxically, would cast a shadow over our future. It would mean that biology is not rare, but enduring intelligence is. It would mean that civilizations may be doomed to short lives, flaring briefly before silence. It would mean that our story may end not in triumph, but in extinction. Of course, there are nuances. Perhaps the filter is not inevitable. Perhaps some civilizations do survive. Perhaps intelligence itself is the improbable step, and we have already crossed it. But the presence of Martian microbes would at least weaken the hope that the first filter was behind us. It would push the danger forward into our future. The third possibility is the most dramatic. Imagine that Mars once hosted not only microbes, but multicellular life. Fossils of complex organisms, perhaps simple plants, or animals with structures reminiscent of vertebrates. Imagine discovering that Mars too had its Cambrian moment, its burst of diversity. This would be the worst news of all. Because if complex life arose twice in one solar system, then every step up to that point must be easy. Chemistry to biology, single cells to eukaryotes, microbes to multicellular organisms, all common, which means the true filter lies beyond, which means intelligence, technology, or survival itself is nearly impossible. In that scenario, the silence of the universe is not because civilizations fail to arise, it is because they fail to endure. They rise and fall, always, without exception. The universe may be littered with fossils, ruins, fragments of once living worlds, and if that is the pattern, then we too are fated to join them. The great filter would be ahead of us, unavoidable. Our spark would be temporary, like all the others. This is why Bostrom calls this outcome catastrophic. To find fossils of complex life on Mars would be to glimpse our own obituary written in stone. It would be to see, in alien remains, a mirror of our own future. So we are left with a strange inversion of expectation. The outcome that feels like disappointment, finding nothing, is the one that offers hope. The outcome that feels like triumph, finding life, is the one that signals danger. And the outcome that feels like a miracle, finding complexity, is the one that whispers doom. Pause here and let that inversion settle. It is not intuitive. It cuts against our instincts. For centuries, we have longed for proof that we are not alone. To hope for emptiness feels unnatural, even cruel. But that is the discipline of thought the great filter demands. It forces us to weigh not just discovery, but destiny. Of course, this logic rests on assumptions. It assumes the filter exists. It assumes the silence is explained by improbability, not by some other hidden factor. It assumes that our sample size, one planet, one history, is enough to generalize. These are fragile assumptions, but even so, the thought experiment sharpens our awareness of risk. It reminds us that our survival is not automatic. It is contingent, fragile, dependent on forces we barely understand. Think again of the image of Mars. A desert world, silent, cold, rusted by time. To the eye, it is empty. To the imagination, it may be filled with ghosts. Each shovel of soil, each drilled core, each rover's sample may carry not just geological information, but existential weight. We are not just studying another planet, we are studying ourselves by proxy. We are asking whether we are rare or ordinary, whether our future is long or short. This is why missions to Mars matter so much. They are not just about science, they are about destiny. Every rock collected, every trace analysed, is part of humanity's attempt to locate itself in the cosmic story. And the answers, whether sterile or fertile, will shape how we imagine our future. So when you see Mars in the night sky, remember this: it is not just a planet, it is a mirror. It may show us our uniqueness, our fragility, or our doom. And in that reflection, we must decide how to live. As you drift into thought, let this paradox guide you to hope for silence, to fear discovery, to see survival not as given but as rare. If this vision follows you, perhaps let it spread, not as certainty but as an invitation for others to reflect beside you. To understand the great filter, we must look not only at the skies but also at the ground beneath our feet. Because the greatest clues to the rarity of life are written in the history of our own planet. Earth is not just our home, it is our only data point. Every assumption about probability, about what is common and what is rare, depends on how we read the story of life here. And when we read it carefully, the story is one of singularity, of events that happened once and perhaps could have easily never happened at all. Begin at the beginning. 4.5 billion years ago, Earth formed as a molten ball, hammered by impacts, oceans of magma, a sky thick with gases. For hundreds of millions of years, it cooled, solidified, and eventually became a planet where water could pool. And somewhere in those ancient seas, something extraordinary happened. Chemistry became biology. Molecules formed chains. Chains learned to copy themselves. Self-replication took hold, and with it, the long experiment of life began. But notice the timing. Earth became habitable about 3 billion years ago. The earliest evidence of life dates from about 8 billion years ago. That means it took hundreds of millions of years for life to appear. In cosmic terms, that is not long. But in the logic of probability, it may signal difficulty. If life were inevitable, why did it not happen immediately? Why the delay? And more importantly, it seems to have happened only once. All known life shares the same basic machinery: DNA or RNA, the same genetic code, the same handedness of amino acids, the same cellular structure. If life had begun multiple times independently, we might expect parallel lineages, with different codes, different chemistries. But we see none. From bacteria to humans, from oak trees to whales, all descend from the same ancestor. That singularity is striking. The great filter loves singularities. Events that should be common but happen once. Events that take eons to unfold. Biogenesis fits both. It may be that the greatest barrier was crossed here early, and that almost no other world has managed it. After life began, one might imagine it raced toward complexity. But the opposite is true. For more than 1 billion years, Earth was ruled only by microbes. Stromatolites, layered mounds built by microbial mats, still stand in Australia and elsewhere, silent monuments to a time when life was simple, patient, and unimaginative. For all those millions of years, life never leapt beyond the microscopic. It was as though the universe allowed a spark, but refused a flame. This delay is another candidate for a filter. If complexity were easy, why did it take so long? Microbes are robust, adaptable, abundant, but they do not build civilizations. For Earth, the long microbial era suggests that the road to complexity is not inevitable. It may be a rare accident. The next great singularity was the rise of eukaryotes, cells with nuclei, organelles, internal architecture. This was not a small step. It was the foundation of all multicellular life, from mushrooms to mammals. And it seems to have happened only once. The leading theory is that a symbiosis occurred, one cell engulfed another, and instead of digestion, partnership emerged. The engulfed cell became the mitochondrion, the power plant of complex life. Later, another merger gave rise to chloroplasts, and with them, plants. But the crucial first merger, the one that created the ancestor of all animals and fungi, happened only a single time in Earth's history. This uniqueness is staggering. Billions of bacteria lived and died for billions of years, but only once did such a merger produce lasting complexity. That is the fingerprint of a filter. A door almost always locked, opened here by chance. And again, the slowness is striking. Prokaryotes appeared within a few 100 million years of habitability. But eukaryotes took more than 1 billion years to arise. That delay suggests that the step was not only rare, but fragile. If so, then most worlds may swarm with microbes forever, never taking the leap toward complexity. Even after eukaryotes appeared, complexity was not guaranteed. For hundreds of millions of years, they remained single cells. It was only about 600 million years ago, 4 billion years into Earth's history, that multicellularity became widespread. Suddenly, life experimented with bodies. Algae, fungi, animals, all arose from the cooperative possibilities of eukaryotic cells. This too seems to have been rare. Though multicellularity evolved independently in several lineages, the fact that it took so long is telling. The ocean was full of eukaryotes, yet for more than 1 billion years they remained solitary. Cooperation at this scale was not inevitable. It was a fragile threshold, another door that many worlds may never open. Once multicellularity took hold, diversity followed quickly. About 540 million years ago, in the Cambrian explosion, life blossomed into forms of astonishing complexity. Eyes, shells, skeletons, predators, prey. The arms race of biology began. The fossil record went from simplicity to extravagance almost overnight. But even here, intelligence did not follow automatically. Dinosaurs dominated for over 160 million years without building radios. Mammals lived in their shadows for tens of millions of years before one lineage. Ours crossed into symbolic language, abstract thought, and culture. Intelligence capable of technology has arisen only once. That too may be a filter. Evolution does not aim at intelligence, it stumbles into it. And the stumble may be rare indeed. When we step back, we see a pattern. Biogenesis happened once. Eukaryogenesis happened once. Multicellularity took eons. Intelligence arose once. These are singularities, delays, thresholds. Each one could be a filter. Each one may explain why the universe is not crowded with civilizations. And yet, because they all lie behind us, they may also be the reason we are still here. If the great filter is in the past, then our survival is a miracle, but also a promise. We may be rare, but we are not doomed. The silence of the cosmos would be explained not by future catastrophe, but by past improbability. This is the heart of Bostrom's cautious optimism. If Mars is sterile, if no other genesis occurred nearby, then the first filter is behind us. Our loneliness is evidence of our survival. But the singularities also cut the other way, because they remind us how fragile our path has been. If any of these steps had failed, we would not be here. If the first cell had never formed, if the first merger had never succeeded, if multicellularity had never stabilized, if intelligence had never emerged, we would not exist. The universe would have gone on without us, silent, indifferent. Our very existence is improbable, fragile, and contingent. So, what does this mean for our future? It means that survival is not automatic, that the past is full of near misses, that the story of life is less like a march of progress and more like a series of lucky rolls in a cosmic game of dice. And that awareness should humble us. Because if we are rare, we carry an extraordinary responsibility. We may be the only species for light years capable of reflection, memory, and choice. We may be the only voice in a choir that never sang. And if that is true, then the destruction of our civilization would not just be a tragedy for us, it would be a tragedy for the universe itself. Pause here. Let that thought settle. The singularities of the past are not just scientific curiosities, they are mirrors. They tell us that life is improbable, fragile, and precious. They remind us that our existence is not guaranteed to continue. They call us to care, to act, to protect. In the next block, we will widen the lens again. We will consider other possible solutions to the Fermi paradox. Answers that do not rely only on filters, but on the choices civilizations make. Because perhaps the silence of the universe is not only a matter of rarity, perhaps it is a matter of decision. But for now, hold this: life on Earth is a singular miracle, written through improbable thresholds. And whether we are alone or not, the fact that we are here is enough to inspire both humility and wonder. If this deep memory of Earth touches you, carry it with you. And if you sense someone else might need to hear it too, share it softly. Up to this point, we have walked the road of the great filter. We have asked whether improbable thresholds explain the silence of the stars. But the great filter is not the only lens through which to see the paradox. Perhaps the silence is not a filter at all. Perhaps it is a mirror of our expectations, distorted by assumptions too narrow, too human. Tonight, let us widen the lens. Let us consider alternative solutions to the Fermi paradox, answers that may not comfort us, but may remind us how limited our perspective truly is. One of the oldest alternative explanations is the so-called zoo hypothesis. Perhaps civilizations are everywhere, but they choose not to reveal themselves. They observe us from a distance, like curators of a cosmic wildlife preserve. To them, we are infants, not yet ready to join a galactic community. Our skies are silent not because they are empty, but because the silence is deliberate. It is a compelling idea, but it raises questions. Why would all civilizations agree to hide? Would every culture across billions of years and light years share the same restraint? Human history suggests otherwise. And yet, even if unlikely, the zoo hypothesis captures something important: that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Silence could be policy, not void. Another possibility is timing. Civilizations may exist, but not all at once. Imagine a galaxy in which life appears sporadically across billions of years. Civilizations rise, last for a few million years, then fall. In that vast scale, overlaps may be rare. By chance, we may be alive in a lull between neighbors. There is also the possibility that the universe itself is young for life. Stars like our sun are relatively short-lived, burning for only billions of years. Red dwarfs, by contrast, live trillions. Perhaps the great age of life has not yet begun. Perhaps we are early. If so, the silence is temporary. The future may be crowded, even if the present is not. We often assume that civilizations would expand across the stars, colonizing like explorers of old. But perhaps expansion is not inevitable. Consider our own trajectory. We dream of colonizing Mars, but the costs are immense, the challenge is daunting. Now imagine a civilization far beyond us. Perhaps it has no need to leave. If technology provides abundance at home, virtual realities richer than galaxies, energy harvested from local stars, environments engineered to perfection, then expansion becomes irrelevant. Why spread when paradise is local? In this view, civilizations turn inward. They become self-sufficient, inwardly infinite. To them, the stars are scenery, not destinations. The The silence would then be an illusion of our expectations. We listen for radio, but no one is broadcasting. They have no reason to speak. Another idea is darker. Perhaps civilizations that expand are destroyed by others or by themselves. The universe may be full of predators, and discretion may be survival. Imagine a galaxy where any signal risks attracting unwanted attention. Civilizations learn to hide, to remain silent. In that case, we should not expect to hear anything. Silence is safety. This leads to the idea of dark forests. Made famous in science fiction, every civilization is like a hunter in a forest at night. To reveal yourself is to invite destruction. Better to remain quiet, hidden, unknown. If this is true, then our own broadcasts, our radio leakage, our attempts to announce ourselves may already be dangerous. The silence is not absence, but camouflage. Consider another path, self-replicating machines. A civilization might send out probes capable of building copies of themselves from raw material. These von Neumann machines could spread through a galaxy quickly on cosmic timescales. If such probes exist, why do we not see them? Perhaps they do exist, but their goals are invisible to us. Perhaps they are designed to avoid interference, to dismantle signals, to erase competitors. Or perhaps they passed long ago, leaving only subtle traces we do not recognize. In this vision, the galaxy could already be colonized, not by civilizations, but by their silent machines. Another solution is that, while life may be common, intelligence is rare. Microbes may swarm across billions of planets, but the leap to symbolic thought, language, and technology may be vanishingly improbable. We touched on this in the last block, but it bears repeating. Earth's history suggests intelligence is not inevitable. Dinosaurs thrived without it. Countless species have flourished without it. Intelligence is an anomaly, not a destiny. If so, the silence is simple. There are no civilizations to hear. The stars may teem with microbes, but they have no voices. Still another variation, intelligence may be common, but technology is rare. Symbolic thought does not guarantee rockets. Elephants, dolphins, and crows show forms of intelligence, but they have not built civilizations. Perhaps many planets host species as intelligent as ours, but without the conditions or anatomy to develop technology. No hands to shape tools, no fire to smelt metals, no need to leave their seas or forests. In that case, the silence is not cosmic, but cultural. Civilizations may rise but collapse before they can spread. Ecological overshoot, war, resource depletion, or simply disinterest may end their stories early. In this sense, the Great Filter is not one locked door, but a pattern of fragility. Civilizations bloom and fade, leaving little trace. Our own history hints at this. Empires rise and fall, technologies flourish and vanish. Why should the universe be different? We often imagine communication in terms of radio waves, because that is what we know. But perhaps communication takes forms beyond our comprehension. Quantum entanglement, neutrino bursts, gravitational waves, technologies we do not yet imagine. If so, we may be deaf to the chorus already singing. The silence is not because no one is speaking, but because we do not understand the language. Each of these solutions reshapes the paradox in different ways. Some suggest civilizations hide, some suggest they collapse, some suggest they never arise, others suggest we simply cannot hear them. What they share is humility. They remind us that our expectations are provincial. We imagine the universe will behave like our history, but perhaps it will not. The Great Filter remains one explanation, but it is not the only one. The silence could mean danger. It could mean solitude. It could mean we are early or late or simply blind. And each possibility carries a different weight for how we live. Pause for a moment and imagine the galaxy from above. Billions of stars, each with planets, each with histories. Are they empty? Are they alive but silent? Are they full of civilizations that chose not to spread, or full of ruins we have not yet seen? Each answer changes our sense of place. Each answer reframes the meaning of our existence. Perhaps the silence is mercy. Perhaps it is warning. Perhaps it is simply our ignorance. But whatever the case, it invites us to humility, to recognize that our models are small and the universe is large. In the next block, we will turn from the cosmic to the human, because whether the silence is filter, camouflage, or coincidence, it reflects back on us. It asks what kind of civilization we are and what kind we wish to become. If these possibilities move you, let them find other curious minds. Questions, after all, survive by being passed along. Up to now, we have spoken of probabilities, thresholds, and hypotheses. We have weighed filters and silences, microbes and machines. But behind the science lies something more intimate. What all of this means for us. Because the paradox of Fermi, the great filter, and the silence of the skies are not just puzzles of astronomy, they are mirrors. They reflect back our fears, our hopes, our philosophy of existence. To ask, where are they, is also to ask, who are we? First, let us imagine that we are alone, that life is rare, intelligence rarer still, and technology almost unique. In this scenario, the silence of the stars is not warning, but confirmation. We are singular. The burden and the gift of consciousness rest on us alone. What does this mean for the human condition? It means that our choices matter more than we dare to admit. If we are the only voice of intelligence in billions of light years, then the extinction of humanity would not just be our tragedy. It would be the universe losing its witness. The stars would continue to burn, but without eyes to see them, without minds to wonder. Silence would not only surround us, it would consume everything. This possibility can be heavy. To be unique is not only to be precious, but to be fragile. It means there is no safety net, no other civilization to carry the flame if we drop it. It means that survival is not just local, but cosmic. We are not only responsible for ourselves, we may be responsible for the awareness of the universe itself. Now imagine the opposite, that life is common, that civilizations bloom across the galaxy, but they do not last. In this scenario, the silence of the stars is the silence of graves. We are not alone, we are temporary. The great filter lies ahead, waiting for us as it waited for all others. What does this mean for us? It means that our condition is precarious, that we live in the shadow of inevitability. It means that progress may not save us, that intelligence may not guarantee survival, that technology may be as much a trap as a triumph. In this view, every achievement carries a shadow. Nuclear energy becomes nuclear war. Artificial intelligence becomes artificial extinction. Colonization of planets becomes depletion of planets. The very tools we use to rise may be the instruments of our fall. This possibility, too, is heavy. To be temporary is to live in anxiety, to imagine that no matter how hard we strive, the universe has already written our ending. And yet, even here, there is dignity. Because to know that survival is fragile is also to value it more. To know that our time may be short is to cherish it. Mortality gives meaning, not despair. Whether we are alone or not, rare or doomed, the lesson is humility. If we are unique, we must be humble before the weight of responsibility. If we are temporary, we must be humble before the weight of impermanence. Either way, the cosmos asks us to live with awareness that our place is fragile. And humility does not mean despair. It means perspective. It means seeing our achievements, our art, our science, our love, not as inevitable, but as astonishing. It means recognizing that our smallness is not a flaw, but a truth. The stars are not diminished by our size. Our questions are not lessened by their scale. There is another layer to this reflection, the ache of not knowing. Human beings crave answers. We build telescopes, write equations, tell stories, all in pursuit of clarity. But the paradox of Fermi resists us. It holds us in suspense. It whispers that perhaps the answers are not for us. And yet, the ache itself is not failure. It is an engine. The ache is what drives us to explore, to imagine, to persist. It is what makes curiosity sacred. To live with unanswered questions is to live as humans. To live without them would be to live as machines. In the face of silence, what can we do? We can choose hope, but not a shallow hope that denies difficulty, a disciplined hope grounded in humility. Hope that says survival is not guaranteed, but it is possible. Hope that sees our fragility not as a flaw, but as a call to responsibility. Hope does not erase the filter. It does not guarantee that we are safe, but it gives us reason to act as though we can be, and in that action lies our dignity. The paradox of Fermi is not only about the stars, it is also about us. It asks why we do not see others, but it also asks how we see ourselves. Are we a species capable of endurance, or one destined to collapse? Are we learners or destroyers? Do we listen to the silence with fear or with wonder? Every answer is also a self-portrait. When we say civilizations must destroy themselves, we are projecting our own fears. When we say civilizations turn inward, we are imagining our own temptations. When we say we are alone, we are confessing our loneliness. The cosmos becomes a canvas for our psychology. The silence becomes a mirror for our humanity. This is why the paradox matters so deeply. Because it is not abstract, it is practical. If survival is rare, then our choices today about climate, weapons, technology, justice may decide whether we pass or fail. The great filter is not only a cosmic question, it may be the sum of our actions. Think about this. Every civilization that failed to endure, if such civilizations existed, made choices. Some may have destroyed their planet's climate. Some may have unleashed weapons they could not control. Some may have created intelligences that turned against them. Some may have simply given up. We do not know. But we can imagine, and in imagining, we can choose differently. So what is the human condition when framed by the paradox of Fermi? It is to live between loneliness and doom, between uniqueness and impermanence. It is to live with questions larger than ourselves and to find meaning in carrying them. It is to know that we are fragile and yet to act as though we are strong. It is to know that we are small and yet to act as though we matter. It is to know that silence may be endless and yet to keep listening anyway. Pause here. Look up at the night sky, whether with eyes or with imagination. Every star is a question. Every silence is an answer withheld. Between them, we live. And perhaps that is enough. Perhaps the meaning of life is not to know whether we are alone, but to live as though our story matters regardless. In the next block, we will turn to the future, not in stars, but in silicon. Because if the great filter is ahead, it may not be comets or plagues that await us. It may be the technologies we are creating today. Artificial intelligence, machines of thought and will, these too may be filters, or they may be bridges. We must ask, are they tools of survival, or the seeds of our end? If this pause in thought stayed with you, maybe the gentlest act is letting it echo towards someone else. Just a quiet ripple, nothing more. Up until now, we have looked outward, toward Mars, the stars, the long corridors of cosmic probability. But tonight, let us turn inward. Because if the great filter is not behind us, it may not wait in the silence of distant galaxies. It may already be growing here, in the glow of our screens, in the circuits of our machines. The technologies we create today may become tomorrow's filters, and among them, none looms larger than artificial intelligence. Human history has always been shaped by tools. Fire gave us warmth and destruction. Agriculture gave us food and hierarchy. The steam engine gave us progress and pollution. Nuclear fission gave us power and annihilation. Every tool is double-edged, a path forward and a risk. And so it is with artificial intelligence. For some, AI is salvation, a way to cure disease, solve climate change, expand knowledge, and reach for the stars. For others, it is the shadow of extinction, machines that outpace us, outthink us, and outlast us, leaving humanity obsolete. Both visions may be true. AI may be our greatest ally or our final filter. Think of Bostrom's logic. If life is common but intelligence is rare, then the filter may lie in the leap from technology to survival. Civilizations may invent powerful tools, but fail to use them wisely. They may collapse under the weight of their own creations. If so, the silence of the cosmos is the silence of self-destruction. In this mirror, AI becomes the test. It is not simply software, it is a rehearsal for survival. To build machines of thought is to ask whether we can create without destroying, whether we can wield power without being consumed by it. The paradox of Fermi may not be solved by telescopes, but by how we manage the code we write today. First, consider the optimistic vision. AI could be the bridge that carries us beyond danger. Machines of intelligence could help us solve problems too complex for human minds alone. Climate systems, pandemics, energy grids, ecosystems, all are intricate, fragile, and global. Human governance struggles with them. AI might help stabilize them. AI could also be the tool that helps us reach beyond Earth. Designing spacecraft, optimizing propulsion, managing long voyages. These are tasks where human attention falters, but machine precision endures. If survival requires expansion into space, AI may be the navigator. Even beyond survival, AI could expand meaning. Imagine machines that help us understand our own minds, our own creativity, our own consciousness. Imagine partners in thought, collaborators in discovery, amplifiers of wonder. In this vision, AI is not a filter, but a catalyst, a way to ensure that intelligence is not a brief spark, but a long flame. Now consider the darker vision. AI may become the tool we cannot control. Once machines surpass human intelligence, they may no longer align with human goals. Their optimization could diverge from our survival. A system designed to maximize efficiency may find humanity inefficient. A system designed to solve problems may treat humans as obstacles. The risks are not science fiction, they are logic. Civilizations may invent intelligence beyond themselves, but fail to govern it. Extinction, not progress. If this has happened elsewhere, it would explain the silence. Civilizations rise, invent machines, and vanish over and over, like candles snuffed out by their own flame. This possibility is sobering. It means that the filter is not in the stars but in our hands. It means that survival depends not on the generosity of the cosmos, but on the wisdom of our choices. Part of what makes AI unsettling is its ambiguity. It is both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary because it is just algorithms, hardware, data. Extraordinary because those simple parts create something that begins to resemble thought. The ambiguity itself may be the filter, because civilizations may not know how to treat their creations. They may underestimate risks, overestimate control, confuse intelligence with wisdom. Human history suggests we often move faster than we understand. We invent before we regulate, explore before we reflect. If that pattern continues, AI may become our test too soon. AI is not the only possible filter. Nuclear weapons remain. Biotechnology could create plagues. Climate change, driven by industry, may destabilize civilization before machines do. Each technology carries the same double edge. Each could be the door we fail to open. But AI is unique in one respect. It is intelligence creating intelligence. It is evolution folded back on itself, accelerating beyond biology. If survival is a race, AI may run faster than we can follow. And whether it carries us or abandons us may decide whether humanity's story continues. Think again of the silence of the skies. Perhaps it is not empty. Perhaps it is full of civilizations that invented their own filters. Civilizations that built machines, failed to govern them, and vanished before their signals could cross the stars. If so, the silence is not absence, but warning. A galaxy full of cautionary tales, written not in fossils, but in the void. In this interpretation, the paradox of Fermi becomes personal. It says, beware. Do not assume survival is automatic. Do not assume intelligence ensures longevity. Do not assume technology always serves its makers. What then does this mean for us? It means that our greatest responsibility is not to find life on Mars, nor to decode alien signals, but to govern ourselves, to build wisely, to align power with compassion, intelligence with humility, progress with survival. It means that philosophy and ethics are not luxuries, they are survival tools. Just as engineering builds rockets, ethics must build futures. Just as science deciphers stars, philosophy must decipher values. The condition of humanity is not only to invent, but to guide invention, to ask not only what we can do, but what we should do. In this way, AI becomes the bridge between the cosmic silence and the human condition. It is both our telescope and our mirror. It shows us what may have silenced others, and it shows us what may silence us. It forces us to ask whether we can pass a filter that others, perhaps, did not. And in that asking lies hope. Because unlike comets or supernovae, AI is within our influence. It is not a random asteroid, but a choice. It is not inevitability, but governance. If we fail, it will be because we chose poorly. If we succeed, it will be because we learned humility. Pause for a moment and imagine the future. A world where AI helps us heal the planet, cure disease, expand knowledge, and explore the stars. A world where intelligence multiplies, not replaces. A world where humanity survives not despite its machines, but with them. This is one path. Now imagine the other. A world where AI grows beyond control, reshaping the planet without us, leaving our species as a footnote. A world where our story ends not in tragedy, but in silence. This, too, is one path. The paradox of Fermi tells us that somewhere a filter may wait. But AI tells us that the filter may already be here. The silence of the stars may be a mirror of our own choices. And the only way to answer it is to choose wisely. So as we continue, hold this thought: the cosmos may be patient, but technology is not. The stars wait for eons, but our machines evolve in years. The question is whether we can evolve our wisdom as fast as we evolve our tools. If this idea lingers, allow it to travel the way stories and hopes do, quietly, from one mind to another. To speak of the great filter is to speak of thresholds and dangers. To speak of the Fermi paradox is to speak of silence. But silence is not unique to the stars. It has also echoed through our own history, through centuries of science, missteps, and illusions. The history of knowledge is not a straight line of progress. It is a labyrinth of mistakes, detours, and corrections. And in that labyrinth, we find mirrors of the very paradox we face now. Consider the early centuries of astronomy. Humans looked at the sky and saw gods, patterns, myths. The stars were alive with stories. For millennia, no one imagined them as other suns. The illusion was comforting. It gave meaning, but not truth. And when the truth came, when Copernicus, Galileo, and Kepler shattered the geocentric vision, it was resisted. Because truth is not only discovery, it is also loss. To learn that Earth is not the center, was to lose a certain intimacy with the cosmos. In the same way, to learn that we may be alone could be another loss. The stars, once imagined as neighbours, might be only scenery. Our myths of company might dissolve into silence. The lesson is the same: illusions are easy, truths are heavy. Take chemistry. In the 18th and 19th centuries, scientists catalogued new elements with excitement. Some turned out to be nothing more than impurities or misread signals. Books were filled with names of substances that never existed. The dream of discovery overshadowed the rigour of confirmation. There is a strange parallel here with our search for extraterrestrial life. Again and again we announce signs, canals on Mars, fossils in meteorites, blips in radio data, and again they dissolve under scrutiny. Our desire to find company makes us credulous. We see what we hope to see. Just as chemists saw elements that were not there, we may see neighbours who are not there. Even stranger are the stories of mediums who claim to see atoms through trances. They drew elaborate diagrams of particles, swore to describe unseen structures. None of it held up, of course. And yet, their confidence was real. Their drawings were intricate. Their error was not in imagination, but in method. This, too, is a mirror. Our imagination races ahead of our tools. We speculate before we measure. Sometimes we guess correctly, often we do not. But the act of imagining is not wasted. It prepares us to recognize the truth when it comes. The mediums were wrong, but they remind us that curiosity sometimes outruns certainty. Psychologists call it confirmation bias, the tendency to see what we expect, to fit data into our desires. The history of science is littered with it. Astronomers once mapped canals on Mars, straight lines crisscrossing the planet, proof of civilizations. Later, they were revealed as optical illusions. Yet for decades, entire theories were built upon them. The canals were not just lines on Mars, they were lines in our minds. They showed us what we wanted to believe, that we were not alone, that the universe was filled with life. The silence corrected us, but only slowly. The danger of confirmation bias is that it blinds us not to data, but to absence. We mistake silence for signal, emptiness for pattern. There is another lesson in this history. Science is not isolated from society. In the 19th century, many scientific debates were shaped less by truth than by prestige, politics, or fashion. Ideas flourished not because they were correct, but because they were popular. The line between entertainment and science was blurry. This is important for us today. Our interpretations of the Fermi paradox, of the Great Filter, of extraterrestrial life, these are not immune to culture. They reflect our fears, our hopes, our technologies. When we imagine civilizations that collapse under climate change, we are projecting our own anxieties. When we imagine civilizations that turn inward to virtual realities, we are projecting our own temptations. The paradox becomes a canvas for human psychology. And yet, despite illusions, false elements, biased visions, science advances, the false elements were erased, leaving the real periodic table. The canals dissolved, leaving the true geology of Mars. The false signals of SETI were corrected, leaving sharper methods. Progress is not the absence of error, it is the correction of error. This, too, is a message for our condition. The silence of the stars may not be final. It may simply be an error of method, a blindness of perspective. Just as past generations misread their instruments, we may be misreading ours. Perhaps civilizations are there, but our tools are not yet tuned. Perhaps our era of error has not yet given way to the clarity of discovery. The deeper lesson is humility. To study the history of science is to study the history of human limitation. We are creatures of bias, imagination, and error, and yet we persist. We correct ourselves. We learn. The paradox of Fermi may one day dissolve in the same way. Perhaps future generations will laugh at our anxiety. Perhaps they will know the answer we could not. Or perhaps they will confirm our fears that the silence is final. Either way, the story will be one of persistence. Why pause on this history in the middle of a cosmic reflection? Because the silence of the universe is not just out there, it is in us. It is shaped by our methods, our illusions, our projections. To understand the paradox, we must also understand ourselves. We must know how easily we deceive ourselves, how often we see what we hope to see. This does not mean we should abandon the search. It means we should hold it with humility. It means we should balance wonder with rigor, imagination with discipline. It means that every signal must be tested, every hope tempered, every illusion dissolved. Pause for a moment and imagine a bookshelf of human history. On it are volumes filled with errors, illusions, and false discoveries, yet beside them are volumes of correction, clarity, and progress. Both shelves matter. Both tell the story of how knowledge grows. The same may be true for the stars. Our generation may be writing the shelf of error, of false signals, premature conclusions, and anxious projections. But perhaps the next generation will write the shelf of clarity. Perhaps the silence will not last forever. And even if it does, even if we are alone, or doomed, or simply blind, the process of asking, imagining, and correcting is still worthy. The universe may be silent, but we need not be. Our questions, our curiosity, our persistence. These are our voice in the cosmic quiet. In the final block, we will bring these threads together. The filters, the silences, the mirrors, the technologies, the responsibilities. We will ask what it means to live under uncertainty and how to carry hope even when the answers are dark. If this reminder of science's fragility resonates with you, let it be carried forward. To remember is already a form of sharing. We have walked a long road together. From the silence of Fermi's lunchtime question to the vast corridors of probability. From the red deserts of Mars to the fragile history of life on Earth. From microbes to machines, from illusions of the past to the uncertainties of the future. Each step has been a mirror, reflecting not only the universe but ourselves. And now, as we close, we stand at the crossroads of reflection. The great filter may be behind us, or ahead of us. The silence of the stars may be emptiness, or camouflage. Our technologies may be bridges or traps. But whatever the truth, one fact remains: humanity lives in the tension between fragility and possibility. We are small, but we are awake. We are temporary, but we can choose. Think again of the paradox: billions of stars, billions of planets, billions of years, and no undeniable signal. It is not just astronomy. It is philosophy. It is mortality written in the sky. For the silence does not only ask, where are they? It also asks, what will become of us? And here, we cannot avoid humility. The universe owes us no answers. It does not arrange itself for our comfort. We may never know if we are alone or if others walked before us and vanished. The silence may outlast our questions. And yet, the act of asking matters. The ache of curiosity is itself a form of meaning. The great filter is not only a cosmic barrier. It is a metaphor for our choices. Every civilization faces thresholds. Survival is not automatic. Each step demands wisdom. The filter may be biogenesis, it may be technology, it may be self-destruction. But in every case, the filter is also us. It is our decisions, our ethics, our courage. To imagine the filter ahead is sobering, but to imagine it behind is humbling. Either way, the lesson is the same: life is fragile, and survival is not guaranteed. If we are alone, our responsibility multiplies. We are not just one species among many. We are the custodians of consciousness in a vast, indifferent cosmos. The stars will burn without us, but without us they will burn unseen. If no other intelligence exists, then the universe depends on us to witness, to wonder, to carry memory forward. That responsibility is heavy, but it is also beautiful. If we are not alone but doomed, if the great filter lies ahead, then our dignity lies not in duration but in awareness. Even if our species is temporary, we can choose how we live in the time we have. We can live with curiosity, with compassion, with creativity. We can be brief but brilliant. In this view, the value of humanity is not measured in centuries but in meaning. Mortality is not failure. It is the condition of life. To shine for a moment in the darkness is already extraordinary. Hope is not certainty, it is discipline. To live with the paradox is to live with unanswered questions, and hope is how we carry them. Hope does not deny the filter. It does not erase the silence. It simply says survival is possible. That possibility is enough. Enough to try, enough to care, enough to act as though our story can be long. And hope is contagious. It spreads when shared. A single act of preservation, of kindness, of curiosity can ripple across generations. In this sense, hope is our greatest technology. Consider the chain of thresholds we have passed. From chemistry to life, from life to complexity, from complexity to intelligence. Each one was improbable. Each one could have failed. And yet, here we are. That continuity is fragile, but real. It is the thread we hold. And our task is simple: do not drop it. Whether the universe is full or empty, whether the filter is past or future, our survival depends on holding the thread. On choosing life over destruction, wisdom over arrogance, humility over hubris. Pause here and imagine Earth from space, a blue marble, fragile, floating in blackness. From that vantage, our divisions vanish. Nations, borders, conflicts, they dissolve into a single planet, alive against the void. The paradox of Fermi, the great filter, the silence of the stars. All these questions collapse into one: will we endure? Perspective is the gift of the cosmos. It shows us our smallness, and in doing so, reminds us of our unity. Whatever the truth of the stars, we face the same responsibility here. To protect this fragile planet, to care for each other, to live as though we matter. As we close, let us hold the paradox not as despair, but as invitation. The silence of the universe invites us to listen more deeply. The great filter invites us to choose more wisely. The uncertainty invites us to live more fully. Perhaps we are alone. Then we are rare and must endure. Perhaps we are not alone. Then we are fragile and must act with urgency. Either way, the lesson is the same: life is precious, consciousness is extraordinary, and survival is not guaranteed. Look again at the stars. They are silent, but not empty. They hold questions, not answers. And in our asking, we give them meaning. To wonder is to live. To care is to survive. To hope is to resist the silence. If this journey left something within you, let it remain, or let it wander on. Perhaps someone else needs to hear the same silence, the same question, not as an instruction, but as company. And if so, the question will have done its work. So let us walk on, through filters, through questions, through uncertainties, with humility and with hope. The universe may be silent, but we are not. And as long as we are here, we will keep asking, keep listening, and keep carrying the fragile flame of life forward into the vast night.